Hello, this is a video that will give you some steps and tips for designing an online course. So to begin, you don't want to start on your computer. The most important part of building an online course is the planning part of it. You don't want to worry about the technology till you've built the course on paper. If you jump right on the computer and start building, oftentimes you'll get overwhelmed or consumed with the technological elements, and the focus really should be on the planning and the laying out of the course. So here's a suggested model of how to go about building and thinking about your online course. Start with defining the course and module objectives. Then move into planning the assessment and activities. Finally, look at the content files and materials that you'll need to support the assessments and activities, as well as the course module and objectives. So let's first look at the course objectives. The big question that you're asking yourself here is, what do the students need to learn and be able to do by the end of this course? Now you want to make sure that these are measurable. To begin, you might want to ask your department, because some departments have defined course objectives for each course. And in that case, you're good to go because they've already been created. You just want to make sure to get access to them. If your particular course does not have course objectives, you can write them yourself. You want to make sure that they are SMART. The big ones to focus on here are specific and measurable. So you want to make sure that the course objectives are specific, that it's measuring exactly what the student should be able to do when the course is complete. You also want to make sure that they're measurable and that they can be measured. Often this involves some type of action verb that you can see. So for example, the student will explain. Can I see them explain something? Yes. The student will create. Can I see something that they have created? Yes. The student will write or post something. Am I able to see their post or writing? Yes. The student will select. Can I see that? Yeah, you can see them select things on a multiple choice quiz. You want to avoid things that are vague, and you want to avoid things that can't be seen. So the student will understand. Can I really see their understanding? The student will consider. Okay, they might consider, but how is that going to be apparent to me? Maybe they will consider and then create. They will consider and write. So I'm able to see the second end of that. Maybe they are thinking in terms of considering, brainstorming, etc., but they need to create some type of product that can be measured against to see if they have met that course objective. And then, of course, you want to make sure that it's appropriate, reasonable, and timely. You want to keep in mind the length of the class that you're having to work with and how much content there is to be covered. You want to focus on the most important topics first and give those the most time. There isn't per se a magic number of course objectives. It might be that your course has 5, it might be that your course has 8 or 9. Again, you just want to keep in mind the length of your class and how long it's going to take for you and your students to meet those objectives. So once you create your course objectives, you want to break those into module level objectives. Those are going to be smaller objectives that are easily measured and easily met in a week, 2 weeks, however you're going to lay out your modules. Then you're going to organize these objectives into modules. You as the teacher get to decide how you want your modules arranged. This is how you're chunking your content. Some people do it by week. So it might be that week 1 we cover this, week 2 we cover this, week 3 we cover this, etc. If you're following closely a textbook, it might be easier to break your modules into chapters. So this week we're focused, or this unit or this module, we're focused on chapter 1. This module, we're focused on chapter 2. Some people choose to build their modules into units, especially if they're not releasing content weekly. If maybe they're releasing content every 2 weeks, maybe they'll label it Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, etc. A suggestion for using units, however, you want to keep those units consistent. So, units every 2 weeks, units every 3 weeks. You don't want to have a unit that's 2 weeks, a unit that's 3 weeks, a unit that's a week and a half. You want these to be consistent so the student can pace themselves. A common module layout is by topic. So if you were teaching maybe an anatomy course, you might have the module on the lungs, the module on the heart, the module on the brain. And in the lungs, you include all the materials, all the assignments related to the lungs. In the heart module, you include all the videos, all the PowerPoints, all the discussions, all the quizzes related to the heart. So you're organizing them by topic. Another one might be chronological order. So in this case, it might be that I am ordering them by each decade. And so I'm going to talk about the 1920s and all the materials for the 1920s, the essays, the discussions, the PowerPoints, etc. are going to be in the 1920s module, and then the 1930s, and then the 1940s, etc. Then you want to take a piece of paper or maybe in Microsoft Word and write these objectives out on paper. You can make it look like a writing outline. So here's an example. I've created one for a chronological order example of how to lay out a course. So module 1 is going to be surviving your first month of college. So in this, I'm going to put all my materials that are going to be needed to help my students survive the first month of college. So notice I've included bullet points underneath this Module 1 that are the objectives they need to meet for Module 1. Notice that they all have action verbs. So the student will explore campus resource and post. Can I see how they post? Yes. How they plan to use each one. The student will practice and post their favorite note-taking method. Again, they're posting, so I can see that. The student will keep a record of their activities and devise a plan to manage their time more efficiently. They're going to devise a plan. I can see that. Module 2, surviving the second month of college. The student will explore options of associate bachelor degrees offered at the college and select the major most appropriate to his or her plans. Can I see them select it? Yes. The student will determine 3 career choices based upon his or her major and future plans. So again, what you're basically doing here is listing out the module, what you want to name the module, as well as listing those objectives. Now this one was chronological order because we're moving from first month of college to second month of college to third month of college. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. I took the same objectives and the same course and rearranged it and labeled it by topics. So you could have a course and it can be designed and organized by a variety of ways to lay out your modules. It's really up to you and what you feel most comfortable with. So in this topical example, my first module is named Campus Resources. The student will explore campus resources and post how she or she plans to use each one. Module 2 is going to be note-taking and time management. The student will practice and post their favorite note-taking method. The student will keep a record of his or her activities and devise a plan to manage time more efficiently. So these are exact same topics that we're covering, these exact same objectives. I've just organized them differently. One course potential way is doing it through chronological order. Another potential way is doing it through topics. So once you have your topics created and your course objectives written out, you want to make sure that they are put in your course syllabus. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can do that later. Another great way, a place to put your course objectives for your students to see is in the Add Description area, which is at the top of each module. So when you log into D2L and you go to the content area and you make a module, at the very top of it, before you start loading files, will be an Add Description area. That's a great place to copy in and paste in your module level objectives. That way the students are seeing what they're going to be expected to do and what they're going to accomplish in that particular module before they start looking at the files that are located within it. So now that we've completed the course module and objectives, we want to move into the assessments and activities for the course. So the big question with these assessments and activities is asking yourself, what evidence do I need to ensure that the students have met those course objectives that I've defined? So at this point, you want to create a chart. You can do this on paper or you can do this in Microsoft Word. Now, this is going to be something that you're going to keep adding to and refining, and it's actually going to end up being something you put in the course syllabus for the students to see. So to begin, you want to create just a regular table and give it the rows of the columns of modules, objectives, and assessments. So you want to, on the module level, write out what the module is. So module 1, campus resources. Module 2, note taking. Then you want to list the objectives that we just defined a little bit earlier. So module 1, campus resources. The student will explore campus resources and post how they plan to use each one. So you're going to list out that objective. Then you're going to define how you're going to assess that objective. So what are the students going to do that's going to let me know that they've met the objective of exploring campus resources and posting how they plan to use each one? So in this case, it's obvious to me to create a discussion board where the students are going to rank each campus resource and then explain how each campus resources applies to him or her. Now, I always want to make sure to ask myself that with that assessment, is that assessment measuring that objective? Because if they're exploring campus resources and posting how they plan to use each one, and I give them a multiple choice quiz about campus resources, they're not really explaining how they plan to use each one. So that assessment is not meeting that objective. It's out of alignment. So you want to always question yourself after you write these out and ask yourself, does that assessment, when the student completes that assessment, am I going to be able to clearly say yes or no that they've met that objective? Now, you also want to consider that not all assessments have to be graded. Some can be just activities for students to do for practice. So you might have things like self-assessment surveys or unlimited quizzes that that you're not really giving them a grade for, but it is an assessment to measure an objective. So once you've created that part of your chart, you're now ready to move into the content files and materials section. So the big question that you're asking here is, what materials do my students need to be able to complete those assignments, assessments, and activities that I've just defined? So we're going to go back to our chart that we've just created, and we're going to create a new column called Content Files. And what we're going to do now is we're going to review that objective and review that assessment and think, what do I need to put into that module to make for absolute sure that the student will be able to complete that assessment and meet that objective? So if we're looking at the campus resources and the students are exploring campus resources and posting how they plan to use each one, that's going to be met by having a discussion board where the students rank each campus resource and how it applies to them. Okay, what do I need to put in that module to support them to be able to do that? Well, maybe I need to have a school map so that they know where all the buildings are on campus. And maybe there needs to be website links of each content resource and explanations. So maybe there needs to be a listing of each campus resource and the explanations for each campus resource. Now, I also want to think to myself as I'm creating these content files, do these already exist? Are they already linked out there on the internet somewhere, either on our website, on YouTube, somewhere else? Or are these things that I personally need to create? And you might want to highlight the ones that you need to create so that when you do go into your course and start building content, which we're not to that point yet, but when you do, you'll know exactly the artifacts you need to make yourself, as well as just the artifacts that you need to upload, link to, or put in that have already been created. So for example, in the note-taking method module, the students will practice and post their favorite note-taking method. So the assessment for that, how I'm going to know that they've met that objective, is they're going to use different note-taking methods, take a picture of the notes using those methods, and then explain cases in which the note-taking method might be appropriate. And they're going to submit that to the assignment area. So what do they need to be able to do that? Well, maybe they need a video talking about each note-taking method and explaining what it is and how to use it. And then maybe they want some examples of each note-taking method from another college class. So I need to say and think to myself, are there videos of each note-taking method already created? Are they out on YouTube or somewhere else? Or do I need to create them myself? Where am I going to get examples of each note-taking method from another college class? Is it something that I have already available to me, or is it something that I need to create to post up in the class? So now you've completed this chart. And you've begun to define your course objectives, your assessments and activities, and your content files and materials. Now you can actually begin to build that course online. But you want to make sure to put the chart that you've just created in your syllabus so that the students will help them navigate the course. And now that you have this created, you've kind of got a guide to start building D2L. When you log into your course, you're not going to be overwhelmed as to what do I need to start with. You already have your objectives, you already have your modules, you already have your assessments and your content files. So now that you have your course planned, what do you need to do to start building in D2L? This is a suggested order of how to build your materials in D2L. You don't have to build this way. You can actually build any which way you want. D2L is pretty flexible like that. But if you go in this order, you can make sure that things are linking up appropriately. So when I start to build an online course, I build my gradebook first. Then I build my content and modules and then load my files in that are needed in those modules. Then I build my assessments. And the reason why I do that is because my gradebook needs to be built before my assessments so that I can just associate those assessments to the correct grade items. And then once I have the majority of the course built, I then finish up and make any necessary changes to the course syllabus. So when you build your grade book, you want to do that first so you can just associate the grade items to the assessments as they are built. And you want to make sure to refer to the chart that you just created to know what grade items need to be created. So you're going to look at that assessment column and make sure that those align to the assessments that you're creating. Then you'll move into building the content and the modules, and you again want to use your chart. So remember how you designed your modules, if you're doing them topical, chronological, weekly, whatnot. And then you want to upload the files that are also a column in your chart to the correct modules based upon what you've created. Then you want to build the assessments. So the most common assessments that you're going to have in D2L are going to be the discussions, the assignments, which can be associated with Turnitin, and the quizzes tool. Remember that when you make these assessments, either the discussions, assignments, or quizzes, you have to link them to the appropriate grade item for the grade to move from that area into the grade book. So you want to make sure to do that. You also want to make sure to link them to the content area and the correct module for easy access. So when you create a discussion, by default, it's only in the discussion area. You want to go to the content and then link it in that way so that when the student goes to content and clicks on the module, they have all the files they'll need. They have the files, the PowerPoints, the videos, as well as the links to the assessments right there. The last thing is to build the online course syllabus. So here's a list of things that I would suggest that you put in your online course syllabus. The things in red are things that you might not already have in your face-to-face syllabus that you might want to add in. The things that are in black print here are probably already in your course syllabus. And again, you don't have to include all these things. These are just suggestions. So of course you'll have your contact information. You of course are probably going to have online office hours if you're teaching an online course. So you want to make sure to link that meeting area, be it Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, Zoom, Skype, whatever that's going to be. Make sure that you put the link in the syllabus for the students to get to. It's a good idea to set your preference for your email. So remember, we have the Gordon email and the D2L email, and you want to pick one or the other and go with that. You don't want to intermix them. It's also a good idea to put in a timing of when you're most likely to answer or not answer emails. So, for example, you might say, if you email me before 3 p.m. on a day, on any given day, except for the weekends, I will respond to you that day. If you email me after 3 p.m., I might get to it that day. If not, you can expect a response the next morning. On Fridays, if you email me by 3 p.m., then you will get a response. If you email me after 3 p.m., you might get a response over the weekend, but it might be Monday morning. And again, that just gives them a guideline as to what to expect in terms of their communication. So, of course, you'll have the course description and the prerequisites. You also want to include the chart that we have just built with the course objectives aligned to the assessments, aligned to the activities. You want to make sure to have that in the course. Then you'll have your grading scheme as well as the prediction of the turnaround time in grading. So you might want to say, if auto-graded quizzes, you'll get your grade immediately. For discussions and assignments, you can expect to have your grade 1 week from the day it was turned in. That way you're not getting a bunch of emails saying, have you graded my assignment yet? When am I going to get my grade? You have a turnaround plan. You also want to include technical expectations in terms of what skills the student should be able to have to complete the course, as well as the technology itself that the students need to be able to have. You also want to give some guidance as to how to get started in D2L, where to find your first set of content modules. You also maybe want to include instructions of how to use the technology in the online course, as well as who to contact for technical assistance. Then finally, you do want to have your course policies, which are probably already in your face-to-face course. Things like your policy on late assignment, plagiarism, etiquette, etc. So let's go back to this chart. You want to make sure to include this alignment chart, which we've created earlier, in your course syllabus. So you have your module column, your objective column, your assessment column, and then the content files to review in that module column. It might be a good idea to also add a due date column and then put the due dates for those assessments in there so that that's right within the syllabus. So here are some other tips related to building your online course. First of all, we really encourage you to have a Start Here module, and that module would be the first one in the course. It would literally be labeled Start Here, so when students say, I'm in my course for the first time, where do I start? You start right here. That is where you'll put the syllabus file. Remember that syllabus file is going to have that course chart. You also maybe want to create a due date document. You could put the due dates right on the chart itself, or you could create a separate document with all the due dates for the entire semester and where they're going to find that assessment and when it's going to be due. It's also encouraged to have a general discussions board. You can link this in the Start Here module. And what basically that is, it's kind of like an FAQ. So at any time in the course, the students can ask a question in that general questions module, and then you'll respond to it by a certain time. That will prevent students from constantly emailing you and then you having to email everyone back because one student asked a good question. So the policy for that would be every day at 3 o'clock, I'll check the general questions area and answer the questions listed there. If you have a question, make sure to go and look at that area first to make sure I haven't answered it already. And so it'll kind of become almost like a course FAQ. It's also important that you have an introduction discussion that allows the students to introduce themselves, as well as allowing you to introduce yourself, as well as possibly a syllabus quiz that covers the basic concepts in the syllabus. So it could ask questions about the policy, ask questions about the due date, ask questions about the technical expectations. So those are good getting started activities. They can also second as your attendance verification activities. It's also encouraged that you email your students a couple days before the semester begins. You can get that list in Banner Web. Remember, students don't see the course in D2L to the first day of class. They're not able to access any content in D2L to the first day. So if you give them the syllabus or any other information before the class starts, you want to make sure to do that via email. It's also encouraged that you post a welcome announcement in your course with general tips of how to get started in the class, as well as maybe an introduction of yourself. And that will be available to the students right as they log into the class for the first time. You also might want to do some pre-work and pre-schedule announcements as reminders for assignments. So you can go ahead and post all those out. You could go ahead and schedule them maybe, every Monday an assignment is due. So I'll go ahead and every Monday I'll go ahead and make an announcement and pre-schedule it to post on Monday morning. So you can do that work before the semester begins, and then it just auto posts based upon the times that you've set. And that will push to the students' text messages or their Pulse app if they have those, if they're currently using those, and that will help them keep up to due dates. It's also a good idea to maybe post a debriefing announcement every week or every couple of weeks, depending on when the assignments are coming due, about what we've discussed this prior week, and then an overview what is coming up this week. You could make a video using this, or you could do this in text, in a chat text format. But that also kind of keeps the students up to date as to what we're doing, where we are, and kind of help them focus on what the task is at hand. Now, please remember that these are just suggestions. These are not end all, be all, say all. And you might have other ideas about building an online course yourself, so make sure to share them with us. Here is a sample syllabus that you could possibly use as a template. Please know that all of this is editable, so you could put this on your own department letterhead. You could change the information in it. It's all just a suggestion. So again, you can edit it as much as you like. But this is just some common things that you might want to put in your online course syllabus. So maybe an area for course information, and I've kind of put in bold the pieces of things, kind of giving you more of an explanation. So for the course description, you would copy and paste that from your academic catalog and make sure to list any prerequisites. For the required text, you want to make sure what you note is required and what is optional. And you might also want to put in any supportive videos or OER resources. Now, in these descriptions, I put QM and I list a number. And what this is what standard in the Quality Matters rubric for essential course design. That's what those notes are. So basically, if you put it a course description, it's meeting your Quality Matters 1.2 standard. By having a required text is meeting these standards. So it's just letting you know how important that is and what standard it meets. Then there should be maybe perhaps an instructor and communication information section. When you put in your contact information, make sure to include the link to your office hours via Ultra or any other web conferencing system. And then make sure to determine if you're going to be using the Gordon email or D2L email system because those are different. When you put in your office hours and email availability, make sure, like we've discussed earlier, to put when you're most likely to answer emails. Then you might want to have an email policy of what they need to include. I personally like for my students to include the course that they're enrolled in, their 929 number, and Gordon email. That way I'm able to go into D2L and look specifically at the course that we're talking about. Next is the course outline, which meets this standard. Now, this outline, again, is something that we've built already in our planning phase. We're just copying and pasting it into the syllabus so the students are aware. There's a column for the module name, the objective met in that module, the content for them to review in that module, and then the module assessment. Of course, you would also put in the due date for that assessment as well. Then you would have a grading section, which breaks down what each assignment is for the final grade, as well as a turnaround for the assignments. So in this case, quizzes are automatically graded. Homework and discussions, which are pretty short discussions or short assignments, will have a 3 to 5 day business day turnaround, and then projects would have a 5 to 10 day business turnaround. So this kind of gives the students a guide as to when you can expect your grade, so that they're not constantly emailing you. And then the final letter grade correlation. Next, you have your class policies, which meet this area of Quality Matters. I do like to include this note about online courses because the majority of our courses are not self-paced. There are activities to complete, so you want to make sure that you pace yourself. Sometimes students have a misunderstanding that online courses are self-paced, and as long as you turn them in by the end of the semester, you're fine. Then you want to include your own personal policies in regards to late assignments, academic integrity, and etiquette. I included some notes here for etiquette, just in case you're not familiar with that or you wanted some tips as to what type of etiquette things to include. I listed some things here that you can either use or you can take out if you want. Moving on down, you have a technical expectations section, which is for these levels of Quality Matters. Again, you might just want to copy and paste this information in if it fits your class. It's what they're going to be expected to be able to use in terms of Microsoft Word, posts and discussions, take screenshots, etc., as well as what tools they need to be successful. So a laptop or desktop, a webcam, internet access, Microsoft Office, etc. I've also embedded in the links for them to download Microsoft Office, as well as embedded links to tutorials and videos and handouts of how to be able to use these different instructional tools. So again, it might just be a good idea to copy and paste that right into your syllabus. There's a technical and content support area, which meets this level of Quality Matters. And again, this is just explaining how to locate the course content, as well as how to receive help in regards to the course. And so, again, you might just want to copy and paste this into your course. It explains how, if they're having trouble with D2L, who they need to contact, if they're having trouble with hardware, who they need to contact, And then, of course, we always ask if they're having trouble with course content that they do contact the professor. And then this section is going to give them some guidance as to how to get started in the online course, which meets this standard. And so this is probably going to be the same for most courses, so you can copy and paste that in. It shows them basically how to log into their course, how to go to the content area, how to reset their password if they're not able to log in, and how to email the technical support if they're not able to log in after resetting their password. So again, this is just a template. Feel free to edit it and use it as much as you want. Feel free to maybe use the descriptors in bold or in red to kind of guide you. But this is just a sample syllabus to help you in developing your online course.